Welcome to BL Stories, where romance, drama, and unforgettable boys' love come to life. Love knows no limits, and the best stories aren't always straight. Subscribe now and join our growing BL-loving family. Jasper Matthews reflects on his complex feelings for his childhood friend Hayden Walker, who recently ended his relationship with his girlfriend. Despite recognizing Hayden as his first love, Jasper is aware that their relationship cannot progress due to societal norms surrounding their identities as gay men. However, when Xander Peyton, an intriguing upperclassman with striking light green eyes, begins to show interest in Jasper, he struggles to resist the developing connection with Xander. This unexpected attraction forces Jasper to confront his emotions and his painful memories tied to Hayden. As he grapples with the question of whether all first loves result in heartbreak, Jasper must navigate the possibility of expressing his feelings for Hayden while simultaneously exploring the deepening bond with Xander. Will he find closure with his first love or embrace his new, unexpected feelings? The story delves into themes of love, self-discovery, and the complications of first love. Chapter 1. When my childhood friend broke up with his girlfriend of 2 years, I didn't feel sorry for him. The first thought that crossed my mind was, finally. Hey, don't be like that. She was kind of difficult anyway, I said, trying to offer some comfort as I watched him slump over in the campus library. It wasn't that he'd done anything wrong. Hayden was probably the best boyfriend anyone could ask for, thoughtful, caring, and genuinely in love with her. I never saw it coming, Jasper, Hayden said, burying his face in his hands. How could she just lose interest after all this time? I could have told him it was bound to end eventually. Anyone could have. Paisley had a history of short-term relationships, and it surprised everyone that hers with Hayden lasted 2 whole years. He was just too blinded by love to see it. It'll be all right. It's probably for the better, I said. How do you figure that? Hayden lifted his head, his brown eyes meeting mine. His blonde hair was a little messy, but to me, he still looked incredible. Now you've got more time to hang out with me, I teased, flashing him a grin. If you're trying to cheer me up, it's not really working, he replied. Why not? What's wrong with enjoying my company? I asked. Everything, he said. You're a guy. I froze. That wasn't the response I expected. Why was he suddenly using my gender as a reason to avoid hanging out? We'd been best friends since childhood. Would it help if I were a girl? I asked a little sarcastically. I'd rather it not be you, he said bluntly. His words cut deeper than he could imagine. I didn't dare tell him, because he'd never believe me. I cherished every moment I could spend with him, even if it hurt knowing he didn't feel the same. Low blow, I muttered, leaning back in my chair and resting my arms behind my head. I wasn't sure when these feelings for Hayden had started. Maybe it was inevitable. We'd been inseparable since we were kids. I realized I liked him back in our junior year of high school, though the truth is, I'd probably liked him even earlier. I had just been in denial. How could I like a guy? But it wasn't just any guy. I liked Hayden. Those 2 years while Paisley had his attention had been hard, knowing it would only end in pain. Still, I couldn't help it. I should get going, I said, standing and patting his shoulder lightly. I'm always here for you, Hayden. He looked up, a soft smile appearing. Since we were kids, he said. I've known that since we were kids. You'd better have, I joked, picking up my backpack. I'm off to class now. Okay, he said. Sorry for being harsh earlier. Just in a weird mood. I forced a laugh, hiding the sting of his words. It's nothing I'm not used to. And with that, I left my heartbroken childhood friend in the library and headed to class. The walk to my math class felt heavier than usual. The crisp air nipped at me, so I bundled myself up before entering the building. Once in class, I hung my jacket on the chair I intended to sit in and leaned forward, resting my head on the desk. A brief nap would be nice. Seconds later, I felt my jacket being tugged from behind. I snapped upright, squinting at the figure in front of me. What? I said, reaching for my jacket. You should be asking me that, the guy said, glaring at me with striking green eyes. His dark hair was short, and a unique black tattoo spiraled down his right arm. A diamond earring glinted in the light. "Excuse me?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "Is this your seat?" He smirked. "Yes. And you're in it." "Oh, how polite of me to sit here without an assigned seat," I said, matching his smirk. "Haven't we outgrown middle school yet?" The room fell quiet. Apparently, no one had ever dared challenge him before. "Or maybe I just have poor eyesight," he said. "This is the perfect spot, not too close to the front, but just right to see the board." "Then come earlier next time." "I'm not moving," I replied. "The seat behind me is open." He removed his elbow from the desk, shooting me a look of disgust, and moved past me, brushing lightly against my backpack. But I let it go. The class dragged on, with occasional nudges from behind. I suspected the green-eyed guy, but it was fine. I secretly enjoyed it. He was frustrating, immature, annoying, but impossible to ignore. After class, I walked down the long hallway, head down, dragging my feet. I bumped into someone, and something fell to the floor. I quickly bent to pick it up, and froze. A pack of cigarettes. I hadn't even brought them out, yet somehow, they had ended up in my backpack. Nervously, I slipped them into my jacket pocket, glancing around. This campus had a reputation for excellence, and smoking was strictly forbidden. No one could see. And then I saw him again, the same dark-haired, green-eyed guy, smirking knowingly. The day was shaping up to be interesting. Chapter 2. The guy slipped away before I could get close enough to confront him. I was frustrated that his twisted sense of humor could have jeopardized my scholarship at Caldwell University. With a huff, I marched back to the library, where my pitiful friend sat, still thinking about his now ex-girlfriend, Paisley. It was only then that I realized who the green-eyed guy was, someone I'd seen often with Hayden. An upperclassman. He had never made the best impression on me. I'd always preferred to keep my distance, thinking he was reckless with his money, more interested in parties than textbooks. Determined to distract Hayden from Paisley, I decided to tell him about my encounter with the mysterious upperclassman. Sliding into the seat across from him, I tapped the table beside his head. He looked up and managed a small, forced smile. I launched into my story immediately. I couldn't bear to hear more about how much he missed Paisley. It hadn't even been a few hours since the breakup. "I met a rude guy today," I said, staring into his eyes. "I think you might know him." Hayden raised an eyebrow. "Me? Know a rude guy?" "Yeah. There's a guy I always see with your friends. You know, the one with the spiraling dark tattoo on his arm and those striking green eyes." Hayden's eyes drifted to the ceiling as he thought, then returned to mine. "Xander Peyton?" he asked. "The upperclassman?" "Sure, if that's his name," I replied, rolling my eyes. "Doesn't matter to me." "Why do you keep calling him rude?" Hayden asked. "Apparently, I sat in his seat in math today," I said with a sigh. "He lost it before taking the seat behind me. Then, as he walked past, he slipped a pack of cigarettes into my backpack." Hayden chuckled. "That's considerate? Cigarettes are expensive these days." I playfully shoved him, and he laughed. "Shut up," I said. "They fell out when I bumped into someone in the hallway. He's lucky no one saw it. If anything happened to my scholarship, I couldn't afford this school. You know that." "I know. That was a bit much," Hayden said. "Not everyone has the same upbringing. I'm surprised he'd do something like that. It's not like him." "What do you mean? He's not usually like that." I asked. "Do you not remember?" Hayden asked. "He's Paisley's older brother." "Paisley's brother?" I leaned back in my chair. "Well, that explains a lot." "Don't say that," Hayden said, his gaze firm. "Paisley isn't like that. I love her, you know." I sighed. I didn't understand what he saw in her, but then again, no one could understand my feelings for Hayden either. Hayden's eyes dropped as thoughts of Paisley returned. "Hey, Hayden," I said, tapping his hand. "I didn't mean to bring her up again." "I know. It's not your fault you didn't realize Xander was related to her," he replied. "Sorry," I murmured. Impulsively, I placed my hand over his. The warmth of his palm spread to mine as my fingers intertwined with his. I didn't know what I was thinking, I only meant to keep it there for a moment. Seconds later, Hayden looked up, meeting my gaze. My face warmed, but I didn't pull away. And then he smiled. My heart skipped a beat. "What are you doing?" he asked, still smiling. "Just trying to comfort you," I managed. Clearly, my words aren't helping. He laughed, and my heart raced even faster. "Idiot," he said, resting his head on the table. I kept my hand on his, covering my face with my other. I was nervous, painfully aware that he would never feel the same way I did. But holding his hand was enough for now. I let it stay there as Hayden closed his eyes and drifted into a short nap. I began to relax, until I made eye contact with a dark-haired guy across the library, a huge smirk on his face, green eyes fixed on my hand resting on Hayden's. "Xander Peyton." I yanked my hand away immediately. Chapter 3. My sudden release of Hayden's hand startled him awake from his light nap. He blinked groggily, clearly wondering why I had pulled away so abruptly. Across the library, Xander smirked before returning to his notes, scribbling furiously. I leaned back in my chair and grabbed my backpack. "I'm heading back to my dorm. I promised I'd help my roommate, Dre, sort things out with his girlfriend." Hayden glanced up and nodded, gathering his books and sliding them into his bag. "I'll head out too. My mom's fiancé is returning from his business trip today." "How's he doing?" I asked as we walked side by side out of the library. "Same as always, gone all week, back on weekends," Hayden shrugged. "My mom's just glad to have someone she can rely on. Things were rough after finding out my father had been unfaithful." "Yeah, that must have been hard for her," I said softly. "Hard for both of you." Hayden glanced down and gave a small smile. "Could have been worse," he replied after a pause. I raised an eyebrow. "How so?" He laughed, brushing his shoulder against mine. "You were there for me when it got tough." My chest swelled, resisting the urge to pull him into a hug. "Of course," I said, my voice gentle. We walked in comfortable silence for a few minutes until it was time to part ways. "Hope Dre sorts things out with his girlfriend," Hayden said, pulling his keys from his pocket. "It's a shame I couldn't help him." "You never know," I teased, laughing. "Someone else might be waiting for a chance to receive some of your love." "Where would I find someone like that?" Hayden asked, glancing at me. "Right in front of you," I blurted out, then quickly covered my mouth. Nah, she already has a boyfriend," Hayden replied, and my eyes widened. "What?" I asked, confused. "Rachel Stewart," he said. "The girl at the bus stop behind you. Wasn't she the one you meant?" I exhaled, relieved. "Yes, that's exactly who I meant. I didn't know she had a boyfriend." Hayden smiled again. "Too bad. I guess I'll stay single for a while. Not sure I'm ready for another relationship. It can be painful, you know." I knew the feeling. Even more painful was loving someone you couldn't be with. "That's why I'm avoiding one for now too," I said, returning his smile. "But hey, your mom's probably waiting for you. Say hi from me." "I will," he nodded. "I'll call you later." "All right, see you," I said, turning to head back to my dorm, secretly excited for his call. Back at my room, Dre sat on his bed, hastily wiping his eyes. His light brown hair stuck out in all directions, and his plaid shirt was untidy. He quickly put on his glasses as I walked in. "How bad was it?" I asked, setting my bag down and sitting on my bed across from him. Dre sniffled, wiping his nose. "She said she's tired of me studying all the time instead of spending time with her." If I had to describe Dre in one word, it would be nerd. He studied constantly, locked away in his room reviewing notes endlessly, a concept I never understood. "Not to sound rude, but I get her point," I said. "You're dating, right?" "We are." Dre sobbed. "Then spend time with her," I said, rolling my eyes. "It's basic. Everyone needs a break. You don't have to ignore the world just for your studies." "You think so?" he asked. "But wouldn't I fall behind?" "Not at all. Hanging out won't make you lose your top rank. No one can beat you," I explained, leaning back against my bed. "All right, I'll try." "I'll try for her," he said, pulling out his phone. There you go, I said, giving him a thumbs up as he dialed his girlfriend. He nervously waited for her to answer. After a few rings, she picked up. Hi, my beautiful May, Dre said. I rolled my eyes at the sweetness. I'll stop studying so much so we can hang out properly, he added. I tuned out, slipping on my headphones to drown out the rest of the conversation. An hour later, I got up to use the bathroom. As I stepped out, my phone buzzed. Hayden's name flashed across the screen. I swiped to answer. Hey, Hayden, I said, sitting back on my bed. What's up? Jasper, he said. My mom's making a huge meal to welcome Brian home. Ah, Brian must be her fiancé. Lucky you, I said. Want to join? He asked. Wait, you're inviting me over? You and a few others, Hayden said, laughing. We can't possibly eat it all ourselves. Come hang out for a bit. I smiled. Okay, I'll be there soon. Bring Dre too, Hayden added. He probably needs cheering up. I'm not sure how he's feeling, but sure. I'll bring him, I said. Great. See you soon, Hayden said before hanging up. I looked at Dre. Get up and fix yourself. You look like a mess. But where are we going? Hayden Walker's, I replied, smiling. Chapter 4. Hayden. Dre began, pausing as he stared up at the ceiling and adjusted his glasses. Walker. Yeah, one of my... I started. I know who he is, goodness, Dre cut in. It's not like you two don't call each other every night and whisper sweet things before you fall asleep. I stared at him. Then why did you act like you didn't know who I was talking about? And since when do we whisper anything like that? Dre only grinned as he pulled off his plaid shirt and tossed on a red one. Don't deny it, Jasp. I hear how you talk to him. And I am your roommate. Just because I'm book smart doesn't mean I'm not a romantic at heart. They don't call me Cupid for no fee. Nobody calls you that, I cut him off with a laugh. And believe me, we are not like that. Now hurry up or we're going to miss out on the food. All right, Dre said, throwing his hands up playfully. You're lucky I'm hungry. Normally I wouldn't step into any social gathering involving your group of friends. I laughed. My group of friends? The only one I really talk to is Hayden. The others are just extras. Dre wiggled his eyebrows. Exactly. Because Hayden is there. Please stop talking, I said, picking up a pillow and gently throwing it at him. He tried to shield his face, but his glasses still flew off and landed on the bed. Really? He asked, blindly patting around for them. I set my books aside so I can go with you to Hayden's, and this is my reward? I rolled my eyes. You're right. I should be grateful. After all, you never have time for your girlfriend. Dre froze, shoulders slumping. I really am a terrible boyfriend, aren't I? His eyes glistened again. Hey, calm down, I said quickly. I was joking. You are a good boyfriend. You even told her you'd try to study less so you can spend more time with her. That's a big deal for you. You think so? He asked, taking off his glasses to wipe his eyes. Of course, I said, walking over and tugging lightly on his arm. Now come on before the food disappears. All right, he sniffed. Let's go. The walk to my car was chilly, and the silence made Dre's nerves more obvious. When we reached the vehicle, he slid into the passenger seat and I drove toward Hayden's house, which was thankfully only 15 minutes away. When we arrived, I noticed 3 other cars already parked along the street. Dre didn't move. He held onto the door handle but didn't open it. What now? I asked halfway out already. This really isn't my thing, he admitted quietly. I'm not good at this. Come on, I encouraged. You'll meet all kinds of people in life. Not everyone will be someone you're immediately comfortable with. Just stick close to me tonight. You'll be fine. He sighed and got out. Thanks, I guess. That wasn't even a pep talk, I said with a laugh. Just relax for a few hours. I'll try, he said, adjusting his glasses one more time as I knocked on the door. We're here. I called. Come in, someone shouted from inside. I opened the door and stepped into the Walker home, with Dre trailing behind me. Jasper! Hayden called out brightly, waving us over to the living room. The house was small but warm, with several guys already lounging around. I took the last open spot on a couch, and Dre sat stiffly beside me. "What are you guys doing?" I asked. "Nothing much. Mom's still finishing up the food, so we're just waiting," Hayden said. "Any ideas? Do you still have your pool table in the basement?" I asked. "Yep," he replied, "though it's a bit worn out." One of the guys just, "Yeah, that's because I once fell asleep on it after a long night. This guy," he said, pointing at Hayden with a grin, "never lets me take his bed." Hayden shook his head, laughing. "I didn't think you minded the table." I felt someone poking my arm and turned to see Dre whispering, "So, are we playing or not?" Chase must have overheard because he laughed, and so did Hayden. "Sure," Hayden said, stretching. "Let's go play." There were 5 of us total, me, Dre, Hayden, Chase, and a guy named Rye. "Let's split into 2 teams, Hayden suggested. "We can rotate shots." Naturally, Dre clung to my side, so we ended up on the same team. "The teams are uneven," I pointed out. "You've got 3 people." "That's because," Rye started to explain. "Hayden, your mother wants to know where you put the paprika," a deep voice called from upstairs, followed by footsteps descending into the basement. Hayden groaned. "It's in the first." "We can't finish the chicken without it," the voice continued, getting closer. "It's in the first cabinet left of the fridge." Hayden called back. "It's not your first time cooking here, Xander." My eyes widened instantly. Xander. A tall silhouette stepped fully into the light, and when his green eyes met mine, that familiar smirk appeared, the one I hadn't seen in a long time. He looked directly at me and said, with far too much amusement in his voice, "Well, this is interesting." Chapter 5. I crossed my arms and forced myself not to break eye contact with Xander. I didn't want to deal with him any more than necessary, but that was becoming harder now that he and Hayden were friends. Xander walked to the opposite side of the pool table, glancing away from me and addressing Hayden instead. "You said the first cabinet to the left of the fridge?" he asked. "I think that's where I left it," Hayden replied, scratching his neck. "If not, I can run to the store. It's just down the street." "No need," Xander said. "We can skip the paprika if it's missing. I'll get back to cooking." "I'm sure Mom appreciates the help, but you can stay and play pool for a bit," Hayden said with a laugh. "Jasper keeps complaining the teams are uneven." "When did I started to say. Did he now?" Xander cut in, giving me a look far too amused for my comfort. "Well, I guess I have no choice." "You can go back to cooking," I said quickly. "Dre's good at pool. We'll be just fine." Xander shot me a glare over his shoulder. "Not charming," he muttered before turning and heading back upstairs. "What?" The 3 guys on the other team burst into laughter, which only made my irritation spike. "You're brave," Dre whispered. "That's Xander Peyton." "I know exactly who he is," I muttered. "And I honestly don't care. Let's just start the game." "I'll break," Chase announced enthusiastically, grabbing a pool stick. He broke the formation and the balls scattered, one striped ball dropping neatly into a pocket. "Ah, I wanted solids," Rye complained, nudging Chase and taking his turn. As Rye lined up his shot, my mind drifted back to Xander's comment. "Unattractive? Seriously?" "Jasp, your turn," Dre said, handing me the pool stick. "Oh, you made one in?" I asked. "I made 3, Jasper," Dre said, shaking his head. "Where were you just now?" "Nowhere," I mumbled, taking my shot. The cue ball bounced off the edges and hit nothing. "Scratch," Hayden said, smiling. "Wow, Jasper. Been a while, huh? Your skills are definitely getting rusty." "Quiet," I said, gently nudging him with the pool stick. His hand brushed over mine when he took it, and the warmth of it made my face heat up for reasons I refused to acknowledge. I looked down immediately, hoping he wouldn't notice. But Dre did, and smirked knowingly. "You know nothing," I whispered sharply at him. "I am the god of low," he began. "Losers," I corrected. He gasped dramatically. "Rude." I sighed as it became our turn again. I grabbed the pool stick and made another terrible shot. "You really are struggling today," Dre teased. "The nerd is doing better than you." Self-proclaimed nerd, I countered, laughing. How embarrassing. It is not embarrassing, Dre insisted, earning more laughter from the guys. Don't ask me to help you study anymore. I'm joking, I said, smiling. I need my amazing tutor. Nice try, he said. Flattery won't save you. Before I could retort, Mrs. Walker called loudly from the kitchen, Who's hungry? Within seconds, all 5 of us sprinted toward the dining area. Smells great, Mrs. Walker, Rye said, sliding into a seat. I took my usual spot across from Hayden, and Dre sat beside me as always. This looks incredible, I said, admiring the spread of food. I couldn't have done it all without Xander, Mrs. Walker said fondly, practically glowing at him. I tried not to react. I'm happy to help, Xander replied warmly. I cook a lot at home anyway. Seeing such a gentle expression on his face was unsettling. It felt like I was witnessing an entirely different person. I shook it off and began filling my plate. The only empty seat left was the one beside me, so of course, that's where Xander sat. He reached for the mashed potatoes, and once again I caught sight of the spiraling tattoo on his arm. It made me wonder if he had another one hidden on his other arm, but he always kept that sleeve covered. Do you like it? Xander asked suddenly. What? I blinked. You keep staring at it. You did the same thing in math class. I rolled my eyes. It's going to look great when you're 80. Xander laughed, a surprisingly genuine sound. You might be right. I exhaled, resisting yet another eye roll. I'm thinking about getting one, Hayden said suddenly. My head snapped up. A tattoo? Of what? Hayden grinned mischievously. Our initials. I choked on my food. Our initials? Dre burst out laughing, and Hayden followed. I'm kidding, he said. Your reaction was priceless. My cheeks grew warm, and I quickly looked down at my plate. Then someone nudged my side, not gently. I whipped my head toward Xander. Too bad, he said under his breath. Before I could respond, the front door opened, and a familiar voice called out. I see you all waited for me before eating. Chapter 6. The 6 of us, and Mrs. Walker, froze when a tall man in a gray suit walked into the dining room. His dark hair was neatly combed back, and a light beard framed his jaw. His stormy gray eyes swept over each of us and then over the table full of food. He looked so put together that I couldn't help but notice the easy smile spreading across his face, revealing perfectly white teeth. For a moment, I actually wanted to ask Mrs. Walker where she met such a handsome man, but I kept the thought to myself. I'm home, he announced as we continued staring at him. Welcome home, honey, Mrs. Walker said warmly as she wrapped him in a brief hug. Good to see you, he replied before stepping back. His gaze moved around the table until it landed on Hayden. Hey buddy. How's everything going? He asked with a gentle smile. Pretty good, Hayden answered, returning the smile. Oh, Brian, these are my friends. That's Chase, he said, pointing around the table. Rye, Xander, Jasper, and Dre. Nice to meet you all, Brian said before turning his attention to me. Jasper, right? Yes. I replied, unsure. Ah, so you're Jasper, he said as he sat down beside Hayden. I've heard a lot about you. Hayden shot him a warning look and nudged him in the side. Cut it out, he muttered. Brian just laughed, but his comment left me confused. Had Hayden really talked about me? Well, I hope he made me sound at least somewhat decent, I joked, twirling my fork. Another pair of eyes suddenly fixed on me. I made the mistake of meeting them. Light green eyes, sharp and unreadable, belonged to Xander. What? I snapped, unable to stop myself. With that attitude, Xander said calmly, I hope Hayden described you as difficult. You're the only one who brings out my difficult side, I replied. Xander leaned back, tilting his head as he kept staring at me. I'm honored. Rye snorted, and Hayden smiled. I tore my gaze away from Xander just as Hayden spoke. You two seem to get along better than you admit, Hayden said, a grin tugging at his lips. I'm not sure I agree with that, I replied. You know I don't get along with rude people. Rude? Xander raised an eyebrow. If I remember correctly, I even gave you a free pack of Jasper. Mrs. Walker suddenly cut in, her expression filled with concern. Since when do you smoke? I don't, I began. Your father would be heartbroken if he heard that, she continued. And you don't want to risk your scholarship. I don't smoke, I repeated firmly, shooting Xander a glare. He put a pack in my bag on purpose to get me in trouble. I turned fully to Xander. And you still deny being a troublemaker? He ran a hand through his hair and smirked. I'll deny it forever. Unattractive, I muttered, repeating his earlier comment to me. His smirk faltered as the others burst into laughter. Dre wiped tears from his eyes from laughing so hard. Idiot, Xander said, though he couldn't hide the small smile forming. Well, that was entertaining, Brian said through his own chuckles. This house hasn't been this lively in a long time, Mrs. Walker added. If you boys are finished, why don't you head to the living room so Brian and I can clean up? Sounds good, Hayden said, standing. We followed him into the living room and settled on the couches. Let's watch a movie, he said, opening Netflix. We agreed, watching him scroll endlessly through the options. About 20 minutes later, I felt a hand on my shoulder. Move over, a quiet voice whispered near my ear, sending a shiver down my spine. I glanced at Xander and quickly shrugged him off, nudging Dre to make room. I didn't want another argument. For a while, everything was peaceful. The movie played softly, and for once, I felt relaxed. I felt warm fingers slip into mine. My heart jumped. I looked at Xander, who was still staring at the screen, completely unfazed. I tried to pull my hand back, but he gently tightened his grip. What are you doing? I whispered, hoping no one would notice. He glanced at me briefly. You've dealt with worse, he murmured. Instantly, my mind flashed back to the library, when I impulsively rested my hand on Hayden's. I had forgotten Xander witnessed the whole thing. I elbowed him sharply in the side. He doubled over, grabbing where I hit him. The others turned toward us. Dude, you okay? Hayden asked, pausing the movie. I'm fine, Xander said through clenched teeth, shooting me a glare. I shrugged. You started it. Don't be surprised if something else comes your way later, he muttered. I ignored him for the rest of the movie, though I silently wished I was sitting next to Hayden instead. But I stayed beside Dre, just in case Xander tried anything else. Another 30 minutes passed when Xander's phone buzzed. He checked it, then quickly stood and grabbed his jacket. Sorry, I need to go. Chapter 7. Mrs. Walker peeked out from the kitchen as she noticed Xander getting up to leave. Xander, she called out. Thank you again for helping with the cooking. No problem, he replied quickly, slipping his phone into his pocket as he turned toward the door. He took a few steps away before she added. And thank you for helping with the dishes, too. My head snapped toward him in surprise. He stayed and helped with the dishes? Xander nodded politely before Hayden stood up to walk him out. See you later, guys, Xander said, giving each of us a quick look. But his eyes lingered on me just a moment longer. Then he hurried out the door with Hayden following close behind. When Hayden returned and flopped onto the couch, Chase finally spoke. Wonder what's got him in such a rush. I wondered the same thing. Xander usually looked calm and collected, but just now, he'd seemed almost worried. It's weird seeing him like that, I added. He usually doesn't get thrown off by anything. You're right, Hayden said. Whatever it is, he'll figure it out. He never lets anything get to him. Good for him, Rye commented. You should learn from him. What do you mean? Hayden asked. Not letting anything get to you, Rye said. Especially stuff about your little sister. My stomach dropped. What? I started, but Hayden cut me off. I guess you're right, Hayden said softly. Maybe it's time I moved on. Exactly, Chase added. She's probably out there having fun and not thinking twice. I stared at them, shocked that they could talk about their friend that way. Before I could say anything, Dre spoke up, surprisingly bold. Wow, he said. These are some great friends you have, Hayden. I love it when my friends talk like that about me. My mouth fell open. Bold, I whispered as Dre looked away, clearly second-guessing his decision. Chase and Rye only laughed, and something inside me snapped. Their attitude toward Hayden, and toward Dre, frustrated me more than I expected. "Let's go," I said, standing abruptly and gently pulling Dre with me. "Thanks for having us over, Hayden. I had a great time. If not for those two," I added, gesturing toward Ryan Chase, "I wouldn't be leaving this early. Too bad they had to ruin the mood." Hayden looked down, almost embarrassed by their behavior. He walked us to the front door and stepped outside with us. "Give me the keys," Dre said once we were outside. "I'll warm up the car." He nudged my arm, took the keys, and jogged down the driveway to start the engine. "Thanks for coming tonight," Hayden said, shivering slightly. "And, sorry about Ryan Chase. And Xander too." "Don't worry about it," I said with a smile. "I'm glad we could all hang out. But you should get back inside, it's freezing." Hayden smiled, and my heartbeat immediately sped up. "I'm okay," he said quietly. "Besides, we finally get to talk alone." I didn't even notice the cold anymore. Maybe I didn't want to, not when moments like this were so rare. Without thinking, I stepped closer and gently rubbed his arms to warm him up. He let out a light laugh, and I quickly pulled my hands back. "What?" I asked, embarrassed. "I'm starting to realize you can be really cute sometimes," Hayden said, smiling warmly. My heart stopped. I wasn't even sure I heard him correctly. Before I could respond, he turned, opened the door, and stepped inside. "See you tomorrow," he said before closing it, leaving me staring at the door in stunned silence. "Jasp, you coming?" Dre shouted from the car, snapping me back to reality. "He went inside already, you know." I finally breathed again and walked toward my car. The moment I sat down, Dre practically yelled in my ear, "Cupid strikes again." "What?" I asked. "Seriously? You didn't notice the huge favor I just did for you?" he said as I backed out of the driveway. "I can't say I did. I stood outside freezing just so you could get alone time with your boy Hayden," he declared dramatically. "Oh," I said. "Oh, that's all you have to say to the god of love?" he asked. "I don't see anyone fitting that description," I replied. "You just don't believe it," Dre said. "How could a nerd like me be so gifted in romance?" "You're hopeless in love," I teased. "Your own relationship proves that." "I guess I can't deny what you did for me tonight." "Call me the god of love," he said. "What?" "Say it. That'll count as your thank you." I groaned. "Fine. Whatever helps you sleep at night, god of love." Chapter 8. The next morning, sunlight streamed through our dorm window, making me squint as I rubbed my eyes. I stretched, trying to shake off the exhaustion from barely sleeping. Honestly, how could I sleep after Hayden called me cute? No matter how much I tried to convince myself he didn't mean it the way it sounded, my mind replayed it over and over. I got up and glanced at Dre, who was still fast asleep with his mouth wide open, snoring loudly. His glasses lay beside him on the bed, miraculously not crushed. I carefully picked them up and set them on his nightstand. He let out another loud snore and rolled over, making me stifle a laugh. Then it hit me, I was running late. In a panic, I grabbed a quick outfit, brushed my teeth, threw my backpack over my shoulder, and rushed out the door. As I walked to my math class, I groaned. Not because of the subject, though that was part of it, but because my mind drifted back to last night, to the moment Xander rushed out of Hayden's house in a way that was so unlike him. "Sorry, I've gotta go." Why had someone so calm and collected suddenly looked worried? Curiosity got the better of me. When I entered the classroom, I intentionally sat in the same seat as before, Xander's seat. A few minutes later, he walked in with his head lowered, dark hair falling over his face. He looked up, scanning the room, and his light green eyes landed on me instantly. He let out a soft sigh and walked past me to sit in the seat behind mine. No complaints. No sarcastic remarks. Nothing. That was unusual. Before I could stop myself, I turned around to face him. He leaned back casually, his expression unreadable, until the faint solemnness I'd seen earlier faded into his familiar smirk. "What is it?" he asked. Regret hit me instantly. How was I supposed to ask about last night without sounding concerned? But I also couldn't just turn around and say nothing. What happened yesterday? I asked finally. You left so suddenly. His smirk widened as he raised an eyebrow. Are you worried about me? My jaw dropped. I'm just asking because everyone else was wondering too, I said, narrowing my eyes. You're the first one who actually asked, he replied, leaning forward on his elbows. His face was suddenly inches from mine, and I froze. They could have called me, but they didn't. They were worried, Xander, I managed. He blinked and a warm smile appeared. You said my name. What? I say everyone's names, I muttered. He laughed softly. It just sounded nice, that's all. Strange, I whispered, turning away, until he reached out and lightly grabbed my shoulder, gently turning me back toward him. His expression was more serious now. Someone at home got sick, he said quietly. That's why I left. Before I could respond, he nudged my shoulder, urging me to face forward again. And so I. Professor Bennings walked in, carrying a stack of packets. He dropped them on his desk with a loud thud. As you all know, you have an exam today on units 1 through 3. My stomach dropped. Since when? My hands grew clammy as I looked around. Everyone else calmly pulled out pencils and calculators. No surprise. No panic. Just preparedness. Meanwhile, I had nothing. I heard a quiet laugh behind me and turned. You knew about this? I whispered. Of course, Xander said with a smirk. It's on the syllabus. Oh no, I breathed, turning forward again. Even Xander remembered the exam. I briefly considered leaving the classroom altogether, but figured guessing at least one question was better than none. When the person in front of me handed back my test packet, I muttered under my breath, oh no. I passed one to Xander, who calmly wrote his name at the top. I skimmed through the pages, desperately searching for a problem that looked even a little familiar. Nothing. Professor Bennings spoke again. Bring your test to me when you're done. I'll run it through the machine so you'll know your score immediately. I swallowed hard. I was definitely in trouble. Chapter 9. When I finally felt confident that I had done the best I possibly could, I walked to the front of the room to turn in my exam. Just as I reached the professor's desk, someone else decided to submit theirs too. Great. Someone was going to hear my score. I turned around to see who it was, and instantly regretted it. Xander stood behind me, wearing that familiar, self-assured smirk. How'd you do? He whispered, fully aware that I hadn't even known we had an exam today. Just stop, I whispered back, careful to keep my voice quiet enough that the professor wouldn't hear. Professor Bennings slid my paper through the grading machine. When the score appeared on the top corner, he looked at me with a sympathetic expression. I braced myself. 31, he said softly. Of course, Xander still heard it. I instantly heard him stifle a laugh behind me. Embarrassment burned through me as I walked past him, bumping his shoulder on purpose. I grabbed my things as fast as I could and headed toward the door. Just in time to hear the professor announce Xander's score. 97. I froze. Xander gave the professor a polite smile before catching up to me. He didn't even try to hide how proud he was. 31, he said as we walked out. Did you only write your name and the date? I tried to walk faster, but he matched my pace with ease. Can you please stop? I snapped. I don't need you reminding me how high your score is. I wasn't going to, he replied calmly. I don't believe you, I said. You're too arrogant not to. Arrogant, he echoed. Interesting word choice for someone I was planning to offer help to. That made me stop walking. What? You know this exam is going to hurt your semester grade, he said. You'll need strong scores on everything else to make up for it. I was going to offer to tutor you, but I'm starting to reconsider. Whatever, I muttered. Dre tutors me anyway. Dre is about to lose his #1 rank in the class. I blinked. What are you talking about? You mean no one has told you who's ranked second? He asked. No. I've only heard about who's first. So who is it? Xander glanced around as if making sure no one was listening. Then he leaned in slightly and whispered, It's me. I stared at him. You're joking. I don't think someone who just nearly failed their exam should accuse anyone of lying, he replied. Everyone thinks I'm an upperclassman, but my credits classify me as a sophomore. Same as you. Same as Dre. And if he wants to stay on top, he'll need every spare moment to study. Do you really think he'll have time to tutor you? I groaned quietly. Math is my worst subject. Why do you even want to be ranked first so badly? If I have the chance to be, then I'm going to try, he said. But I guess going up one rank doesn't matter much to someone who's much lower. You know, you're incredibly rude, I said, turning toward the dorm lounge. And you continually wonder why I call you a rude guy. You're the only one who sees this side of me, Xander said with a grin. I believe you mentioned something similar yesterday. I guess sarcasm just shows up whenever we're around each other, I muttered. We could change that, he said lightly. I stopped. I'm not sure I want to. Why not? I just don't see myself getting along with you anytime soon. Well, he said with a shrug, if you're going to have that attitude, I'm not sure why I'm even bothering. I couldn't tell you, I replied. He stepped aside, angling toward the parking lot. I'm heading home, he said, pulling out his keys. I nodded. He broke eye contact and started walking toward his car. He was almost there when I spoke up without thinking. Hey! He paused and turned, giving me a questioning look. Hope the person who's sick at home gets better soon, I said quickly, then turned away before he could respond. Jasper, a deep voice called. I instinctively turned. Xander was leaning against his car door, one hand on the handle. Give me your number. What? Why? I suddenly feel like tutoring you again, he said, a subtle grin forming. I felt my stomach drop. As much as I wanted to refuse, I knew I needed help if I wanted to salvage my grade. So I did the most difficult thing I'd had to do all semester. I gave my phone number to Xander Peyton. Chapter 10. Do not use this against me, I warned, trying to look stern as Xander saved my contact in his phone. I'll delete your number right away if you do. You must think very little of me, Xander said, slipping his phone back into his pocket. Trust me, I'm not planning to contact you unless I have to. We'll probably only message each other when you ask for tutoring. Oh, is that so? I said. Then we might never message at all. You must think I'll be the one to start the conversation. It's your grade, Jasper, he said simply. I'll be fine either way. You're the one who needs help. I looked down, knowing he was right even if I didn't want him to be. When's the next exam? I mumbled, already dreading the idea of meeting him again. He would probably spend the entire session wondering how I could be this hopeless at math. What? Xander stepped away from his car and closer to me. You mumbled. When's the next exam? I asked more clearly. Next Friday, he replied. You should really read the syllabus. Great, I muttered, covering my face with my hands. This is just the worst. Everything about this is the worst. What do you mean? He asked. All of it, I said in one breath. Why did I have to fail today's exam? Why did you have to be classified as a sophomore? Why are you ranked second? Why are you threatening Dre's spot? And why, of all people, do I have to rely on you to pass this class? Xander laughed. His usual deep, effortless laugh. That's life. Sometimes it feels like everything is going wrong at the same time, but you'll get through it. You know why? No. Because at least one person is not against you, he finished. There's always at least one person who won't be. I frowned. What are you talking about? You'll understand someday, Xander said, giving me a small, almost secretive smile. But I really do need to go. He stopped abruptly. My dad needs his medication. Oh, I said as he unlocked his car door. So your father is the one who's sick? Xander avoided my eyes, scratching the back of his neck. Sure. Sure? It's a yes or no question. He is, Xander said quickly. That's why I need to bring him his meds. He slid into his car. See you, he said before closing the door and pulling out of the parking lot. As I walked back to my dorm, I replayed our conversation in my head. Xander was still a mystery. Half the things he said didn't make sense, but thinking too much about him only made me more confused. When I got back to the room, I wasn't surprised to see Dre hunched over his desk, flipping through his notes. Studying? I asked, tossing my backpack aside and flopping onto my bed. Is it that obvious? Dre joked, pushing up his glasses. You're going to have to study even harder from now on. But you know I take my classes seriously. You're not the only one, I said. Dre finally looked up. What are you talking about? Apparently, the person ranked second is trying to take your spot. Who? He exclaimed, slamming his hands down. Who would try to beat me? You'll never guess, I said, leaning back comfortably. Hurry up and tell me, I'm going to pass out. You might actually pass out when you hear it. How did you even find out? He asked. He told me. He. Dre blinked. Don't tell me it's lover boy. I threw my pillow at his face. You're ridiculous. Just tell me already. Dre groaned. I can't take the suspense. Xander Peyton. Dre didn't faint like I expected. Instead, he stared at his books and whispered. Not fair. What's not fair? Xander Peyton, Dre said, frustrated. How can someone be that good-looking and that smart? It's just not fair, Jasp. I don't really see the good-looking part, I said, rolling my eyes. That's because Hayden is the only person you notice right now, Dre said. But you can't pretend Xander isn't attractive. Whatever, I sighed. Even if Xander was good-looking, it had nothing to do with me. Well, he's only missing one thing, Dre said thoughtfully, tapping his chin. Let me guess. A decent personality? No, Dre replied. A girlfriend. I raised an eyebrow. Xander Peyton doesn't have a girlfriend? Should I be concerned? Or a boyfriend, Dre added casually. I sat upright. A boyfriend? What? Dre said. You didn't know? Know what? I heard he's bisexual. Chapter 11. The idea that Xander might be bi didn't surprise me at all. With his calm confidence, good looks, and intelligence, it made sense that anyone, girls or boys, could easily develop a crush on him. And honestly, I agreed with Dre. It really wasn't fair. Ah geez, I sighed. Life isn't fair. You're right about that, Dre said. I'm book smart but not exactly attractive, and you've got the looks but not the grades. You didn't have to say it like that, I muttered. Anyway, I guess you won't have any time to tutor me now, right? Dre groaned and grabbed his head. Great. Then I won't have time to see May either. She's definitely going to break up with me this time. She might not, I said. Actually, there's something else I should tell you. Dre raised an eyebrow. What is it? Xander offered to tutor me instead. He did? Dre asked, confused. Why would he do that? Well, I kind of bombed the first exam and he overheard, I admitted quietly. I need to make up for it on the next ones. I can't afford to fall behind. So you're going to accept his offer? I guess, I said. Plus, the more time he spends tutoring me, the less time he has to study. It works out for both of us. You stay at the top and I pass math. Dre stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. I didn't know you could think this far ahead. Maybe you're not as clueless as I thought. Maybe I'm not, I said with a grin, rolling over and closing my eyes. The next morning, I dragged myself out of bed and prepared for class. I remembered Hayden was in my anatomy class with me, so I texted him to ask if he was already on campus. He replied that he was running late and told me to go ahead without him. I sighed. So much for walking together. And then reality hit me. Xander was in anatomy too. Great. Just what I needed, facing the guy who now knew I needed his help. I couldn't stop thinking about how he might look down on me. I trudged toward class, annoyed at everything, reminding myself that Hayden would be there soon enough. When I walked into the crowded classroom, Hayden still hadn't arrived. I chose a seat in the middle, close enough to see the board, but not too close to attract attention. I opened my notebook, rested my head on the desk, and tried not to think about anything at all. The chair beside me slid back as someone sat down. You okay? I lifted my head and saw Hayden, his expression full of concern. Oh, hey, I said. I'm fine. Just waiting for you. Sorry we couldn't walk together, Hayden said. Brian had me helping with the laundry this morning. The beautiful man himself. I tried not to stare too long at the way his blonde hair fell over his forehead. Brian seems pretty cool, I said, glancing at him. I guess, Hayden shrugged. He's nice when he's around, but that's only on weekends. I don't know how my mom deals with it. Your mom is something else, I said, leaning back. The patience she has is amazing. I wouldn't be able to be apart from Yo. My mouth clamped shut. What was I saying? What? Hayden grinned. Why'd you stop? It sounded like you were about to say something about me. I wasn't. I insisted. I thought your hearing was bad, but maybe it's just your ego. Why would I say something like, I wouldn't have minded, he cut in softly. My heart jumped. What? I turned toward him. I know you were about to say you couldn't stand being away from me, Hayden said, looking right into my eyes. You don't know that, I said quickly. I could have been talking about your dog. You're still as stubborn as ever, Hayden said. I don't even have a dog. I know. A lover's quarrel so early in the morning? I whipped my head to the side. Xander sat down on my other side, his green eyes amused. What? I snapped, while Hayden laughed beside me. Relax, Xander said with a slight grin. I'm just teasing. I crossed my arms but leaned closer to him, lowering my voice so Hayden wouldn't hear. I know you're not just teasing, I whispered. Xander let out a low, quiet laugh. You're right. Just stay out of it, I muttered. I don't need you getting involved. Selfish, he said, pretending to pout. Hayden isn't all yours, you know. I narrowed my eyes. You don't have to remind me. I leaned back as the professor entered the room. Good morning, Professor Michaels said, her blonde hair tied in a neat knot. I'm a bit late. I didn't have anyone to watch my son today, so he's here with us. A small child peeked from behind her, chewing on his fingers. He looked around nervously, and then burst into tears. Professor Michaels reached for him, but he darted away, running through the aisles as fast as his tiny legs could carry him. Everyone stared, frozen, unsure of what to do as she chased after him. Come here, she pleaded. No, he yelled, glancing back, and tripping over Xander's backpack. He fell with a thud and cried even louder. Before anyone could react, Xander bent down and gently picked him up. The child buried his face into Xander's chest as Xander rubbed his back soothingly. Shoo, he murmured softly. It's okay. You're all right. To my complete shock, the boy calmed almost instantly, wrapping his small arms around Xander's neck. Professor Michaels hurried over, astonished. He never lets anyone hold him. And now he just stopped crying? Thank you so much, Xander. It's really fine, Xander said, still comforting the child. I don't mind holding him for a bit. Professor Michaels smiled warmly. You're unexpectedly good with children. It seems so, Xander replied. Chapter 12. Out of everyone in the classroom, I couldn't understand why the child had stopped crying the moment Xander held him. I kept glancing at them as Professor Michaels returned to the front of the room, leaving the boy comfortably in Xander's arms. The boy repositioned himself so he could sit on Xander's lap, facing the board where his mother stood. What's your name? Xander whispered gently. Lenny, the boy whispered back in a high, timid voice. Xander smiled softly and brushed his hand through Lenny's short blonde hair. I'm Xander. I tried to focus on the lecture, but it was almost impossible with the unexpected scene happening right beside me. Xander kept calmly running his hand through Lenny's hair until the child finally relaxed, his eyes drooping shut as he fell asleep against Xander's chest. So strange, I muttered quietly, leaning back. Xander looked at me, his green eyes glinting with amusement. You jealous? He whispered. No, I whispered back. I'm not great with kids. No, I meant jealous of the kid, he teased softly. I stared at him, thinking he had to be joking, or maybe just completely delusional. You're ridiculous, I whispered, forcing myself to focus on the lecture instead. When Professor Michaels finally finished teaching, everyone began packing up and filtering out of the classroom. She walked over to us again, her expression softening when she saw her son sleeping soundly in Xander's arms. Too bad I don't have you here all day, she said with a grateful smile. It was nice having a moment to breathe. She carefully lifted the sleeping child, and Lenny instinctively wrapped his arms around her neck. "Thank you again, and sorry for the trouble." Xander smiled kindly. "Really, it wasn't trouble. He actually reminds me of someone." Professor Michaels chuckled lightly. "I'm glad." She carried Lenny out of the room, leaving us to gather our things. Still stunned by the entire situation, I slung my backpack over my shoulder and followed Hayden as we headed out of the classroom. The three of us walked side by side, Hayden between us. "Well, that was something," Hayden said, turning to Xander. "Who knew you were so good with kids?" Xander shrugged, eyes lowered thoughtfully. "Sometimes life throws unexpected situations at you. You just have to adjust." His answer made me glance over at him. "So that was your first time dealing with a kid? And you're comparing it to something unexpected?" Hayden asked. "More or less," Xander replied. "Your answers are so vague," I said, puzzled. "I genuinely have no idea what you're trying to say." Xander leaned just enough to look at me around Hayden. "Are you curious?" I rolled my eyes. "All I'm saying is that you're a mystery. And now you're being even more cryptic." "And you're indirectly admitting you want to understand me," he said, smirking. "You can just say you're interested." "You know who I'm actually interested in," I muttered, giving him a look. Hayden's head snapped toward me, eyes wide. "You're interested in someone? And you didn't tell me?" "Xander found out before I did." My heart jumped in my chest. "No," I stammered. "He just figured it out." "And you seriously didn't think to tell me?" Hayden said dramatically. "You've never shown interest in anyone since we were kids. As your best friend, I deserve at least a hint." I stared at the floor, feeling my face grow warm. "You wouldn't believe me," I whispered. Hayden nudged me, hard enough to make me stumble. "Of course I would." "Come on, Jasper." "It's nothing. Just forget it," I insisted. "Jasper, you can tell." "Oh wait, we have an exam in math in a few days," Xander suddenly cut in, clearly on purpose. I nearly jumped at the change of topic. "Already?" "On Friday," Xander said. "Didn't I mention it?" I groaned under my breath. "Hopeless," Xander teased lightly. "Enough," I muttered. "If you haven't forgotten, you did offer to tutor me." "I haven't gotten a message from you," he said, holding up his phone. I sighed, reminding myself I was doing this for Dre too. He needed to keep his top ranking. "Fine. Tomorrow," I said. "Meet me in the library after class." Xander smirked. "Sounds good." Then he reached around Hayden and tugged my arm, pulling me off balance and right into him. "What are you doing?" I hissed. "You're welcome for the distraction," he whispered before lightly pushing me back into place beside Hayden. We continued walking, Hayden quiet between us, eyes lowered. I nudged him gently. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I'm just not ready to talk about it yet. It's the first time I've ever felt like this. It's scary." Hayden lifted his gaze, his expression softening. "That's okay," he said. "I didn't mean to pressure you. I can wait. I just hope everything works out for you." My heart thudded faster, reminding me exactly how deeply I was falling for him. I hope so too. Chapter 13. The three of us went our separate ways, Xander and Hayden heading toward their cars while I made my way back to my dorm. The cold air hit my face, and I exhaled slowly, watching my breath fade into the night. My phone buzzed in my pocket and my stomach dropped. I already knew who it was. "Dad," I said quietly as I answered. "Son," he replied, his voice deep and tired. "You haven't been home in a while." "Well, can you blame me?" I asked, trying hard to keep my voice steady. "I know it's been difficult since." "Yes, Dad, I know," I snapped before I could stop myself. My eyes stung as I stared up at the sky. "And on top of everything, I'm trying, Jasper," he said softly. "Please, just come home." "How many times have you said that?" I whispered, swallowing hard. "It's too much, Dad. I can't live with you. Not like this. Believe me, Jasper. I'm going to change. Come home," he pleaded. "No," I said firmly. "It's suffocating there. Isn't it obvious why I chose to live in a dorm when we live so close to campus?" He fell silent. "Your mother would be happy." Don't. My voice cracked. Don't bring Mom into this. This is about you and everything you've been struggling with. Mom has nothing to do with it. If she were still here, I'd be home every day. But she's not. And she never will be. This time I couldn't stop the tears from falling. I turned and began walking toward my dorm. I'm sorry, Jasper, he said quietly. I miss your mother too. But I also miss you. I want you to know, you're always welcome home. I'll be here. I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand. I hated fighting with him. He was all I had left. And no matter how upset I was, I didn't want to hurt him more. Okay, I murmured. I'll talk to you later, he said. Okay. The line disconnected. I exhaled shakily. Great, I muttered under my breath. Going home meant watching my dad struggle with the same thing he'd been fighting since Mom passed away 3 years ago. It was heartbreaking and exhausting. That's why I stayed away. I walked slowly back to my room, sniffling. When I opened the door, Dre was at his desk working. He turned around immediately. Jasp? You okay? He asked, peering at me over his glasses. My dad called again, I said, dropping my bag and falling onto my bed. Same conversation as always. Oh. Dre nodded knowingly. Didn't go well, I'm guessing? When does it ever? He asked you to come home again? Yeah, I sighed. He always says the same things. Come home. I miss you. I'm changing. But I just can't. I get why you're upset, Dre said gently. But if you don't see him, you won't know if he really is trying. Maybe he's making an effort and you just haven't seen it yet. He can't help it, I said quietly. Every time he thinks of Mom, he spirals. I don't think he can change. I'm not telling you what to do, Dre said. But maybe visiting him would help both of you. He's your dad, Jess. He'd do anything to have you back, even if it meant changing. I stretched my arms above my head and sighed again. I don't know, I said honestly. I just don't. You don't have to decide now, he said. Just think about it. No pressure. I'll try, I whispered. Thanks, Dre. Hey, I've got your back, he said, smiling warmly. I returned a small smile, pulled out my phone, and let him go back to his work. A bunch of messages lined up on my screen. When I opened them, my eyes widened. They were from Rude Bastard. Rude Bastard, Jasper. Rude Bastard, call me. Rude Bastard, when you get the chance. I stared at the messages in disbelief. Why would he want me to call him? I muttered, holding my phone above my face. Dre turned around again, adjusting his glasses. A good-for-nothing loser? You mean Xander Peyton? So you do think he's a good-for-nothing loser? I grinned. I didn't even say his name. Whatever, Dre said, rolling his eyes. But I am curious why he wants you to call him. I laughed half-heartedly. Probably to make fun of me for earlier. Earlier? Dre asked. What happened? I groaned. I slipped up, and now Hayden knows I'm interested in someone. But I wouldn't tell him who. Oh wow, Dre said. But honestly, maybe that's good. Now you can actually tell Hayden how you feel. No way, I said immediately. But why would Xander tease you about that? Does he know you like Hayden? Yes, I mumbled. What? Dre yelped. You told Xander? No, I said quickly. He just saw me holding Hayden's hand in the library. Dre burst out laughing. You held hands? In the library? Even I'm not that cheesy. I threw my pillow at him. He caught it this time and tossed it back. Knew that was coming, he smirked. Be quiet, I said, sinking back into my bed. So, are you going to call him? Xander, I mean. I guess, I said reluctantly. He better have something actually important to say. Thanks for listening to today's BL story. If it made your heart skip a beat, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Only here on BL Stories, where love knows no limits.